Good morning, and welcome to the very second episode of Two Scrambled Brains. And my goodness, am I still waking up? so
Same.
we're running a little late this morning just because we had a couple technical difficulties, but we're both here to talk today about the horror genre and essentially phobias, the things that scare us, and chill us, and thrill us, whether that be within books or in movies. So that being said, Ryan, do you have anything you want to open or add on with that?
Yeah, why? Wait a
Why
minute.
what?
Well, why do we scare ourselves on purpose?
Well,
Um,
some have suggested that's kind of an evolutionary response, like kind of in the same way, like how psychologists really don't really understand the purpose of why we have dreams or nightmares to begin with, other than perhaps there are ways to for our brains to store process information that we've experienced throughout the day. But some have theorized that essentially it's a way for us to sort of act out unusual situations and kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? In a fake environment, a simulation in a simulated environment. Uh, so that way, you have a way to respond to that in the real life, in the real world.
yeah, I think it's important to, um, even little kids, they're testing the fences, they're trying things out. I think it's important to try things out in a sandbox where you're not going to get hurt, and that makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's part of the reason why we do enjoy getting scared a little bit, because especially now that we're no longer in a situation where we're constantly every day trying to hunt or forage, we can just go down to the grocery store and, buy ourselves a sandwich if we want to. But uh, so kind of loses that sort of thrill, that survival thrill, that sort of need to, feel like alive, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, total sense. I don't have to go pick berries all day because I can plant the berry bushes around my hut. So, and I don't have to um, worry about the wolves because I have a campfire. Even in that short scenario, there's less to be afraid of because you have the spear and you're
True.
doing
Good
good.
point.
You know? And we've been that way for a while.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
sorry, you're going to say something?
I was just agreeing.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that was fine. I'm still waking up.
That's okay. I know. I'm still waking up too, and I made sure to get the scariest bedhead I could come up with, being our topic today.
Woo.
So
Yeah,
speaking of,
like
any good horror books or things that you have read or enjoyed recently?
recently, I kind of departed from horror. Um, I'm much more of a sci-fi guy. I like, laser beams and futuristic space stuff a lot more. And you say recently, so we'll say, extend that out to the last couple of years. I think the last horror film I saw was Under the Skin,
Oh, really? Okay.
and that's bizarre and really scary in its own way.
I really enjoyed that one. That's an underrated one. That's the Scarlett Johansson movie, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
and
would,
I
I
mean,
would consider that more of like a sci-fi type horror.
well, that's what I gravitate is towards sci-fi, and there's plenty of blending of the genres where there's sci-fi and horror together. I mean, one of the greatest ones of all time, Alien.
Of course, yeah, that's a classic.
Sci-fi horror, it's haunted house in space.
Haunted house in space. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah, but the ghost will rip you apart.
So that being said, did you even know going into the movie that it was a horror movie, or just thought that this was going to be a
No,
sci?
I had no idea what I was getting into. I was completely out of my depth, and um, I've enjoyed Scarlett Johansson movies before, and uh, haven't really I mean, I think about it, and I think about Lucy or uh, Lost in Translation.
Oh
Like
yeah,
that,
that was a good one.
something
With
like that. It would
Homer.
be,
Yeah.
action adventure or some kind of um, almost French philosophical something. But no, I got tossed in there, and I wouldn't recommend to children. Even to young viewers,
Definitely wouldn't recommend it to children.
skip that one. Wait a while. Have an adult tell you about it, because even as an adult watching it, I was like, "Oh, okay. There's lots of nudity in this. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
There's
so disclaimer there,
horror.
there's a
There's
gratuitous amount of nudity in
existential,
that movie. Yeah.
there's existential horror in it too. Where did it come from? Why is it doing this to us?"
Yeah.
And
And
of
again,
course,
not to spoil it, because there is quite a twist, I would say.
right.
Uh, but when you hear a popping noise, if you watch that movie, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, um, I wanted to give a shout out to Color Out of Space. I watched that a couple years ago, although it's
That's
not a
great.
new
Yeah.
um, H.P. Lovecraft story with Nicolas Cage in it. And he does a great job at being a crazy person.
He really is as good at being a good crazy person, isn't he?
Okay, now do flip out.
Yeah, exactly. Action.
Woo! Oh, flipping out.
Yeah, I would definitely have to say that Lovecraft is a huge influence for me in a lot of ways, and clearly for a lot of people. I'm certain that you've read Lovecraft yourself.
I haven't read too much.
Oh,
No,
okay, cool.
I've experienced Lovecraft primarily through absorbing it from the culture that absorbed it.
Okay.
My I want to say my first experience seeing something that was Lovecraftian and not really knowing where the influence came from was um, here's a blast from the past. Maniac Mansion.
Oh, that is a good one. Maniac Mansion. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've heard
Video
of that.
game, not a book or film, but there's this space alien tentacle creatures. Spoilers. Sorry, you can beat the game in about 5 minutes if you know which button to click. With or without blowing up the house, I think. There's a mad scientist. There's it's a point and click adventure for people watching who don't know what this is. This is Steven Spielberg
Yep. Yep.
did Maniac Mansion on the regular Nintendo NES all the way back. Maybe not all the way back, but far enough back. I don't know what year it came out. Maybe 91, 92, something like that. And then there was Night of the Tentacle.
Yep. Night of the Tentacle. I'm actually trying to see if I can find something on it, because man, that really was a blast from the past that you just brought
The
up.
purple and green tentacle, obviously inspired by Cthulhu. Yep, there it is.
There it is. Yep. Maniac Mansion. Jeez.
I had a great time playing that as a kid.
Let's see if I can bring that up too. Ta-da! A point and click adventure.
Yeah, and it'll drive you crazy.
So, all right. Well, how about yourself, Brian? Have you ever had any phobias or something that really freaks you out or gets under your skin?
Um, I had a fear of heights, which I worked through by climbing things.
Oh, that's a great way
Trees,
to
rocks.
tackle that.
I did a little bit of rappelling. Not too much mountaineering. Didn't really. The only time I really used gear and did anything that required it was through the Boy Scouts. But we did some rappelling out in Joshua Tree.
Okay.
And that was cool.
Was there a specific reason that propelled you to be afraid of heights, or just innately afraid of heights?
Well, just I was climbing before I was walking, and I was um, scared that I would fall. So I would use that as motivation to become more focused and not do that. And what I would find is that uh, my mind would go quiet because I had to focus really intently on what I was doing, or you go splat.
Right.
So everything gets very much quieter. Everything kind of zooms in, and that's kind of nice when you don't have anything to worry about but the one thing. And so very quickly, I found myself in a position. Well, do I continue to say that I'm scared of heights because I'm not? It's not a detriment anymore. I'm using it as a tool. And so I've made peace with that fear and I use it in a positive way.
Okay.
And so now it's an attribute.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
It's a good way to flip the script there.
right. And you can do that. I don't I don't know what the magic sauce is. It just kind of happened naturally in my case. Um, I, when you're walking through a field and then all of a sudden the hair stands up on the back of your neck, and you look around and you're away from the trail, and the little voice in the back of your head goes, it's rattlesnake season.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, oh, what did I do? I went too far to the left, and now I better go back.
Instincts kicking in, right?
Right. And you're like, oh, okay.
Well, so apparently, according to this, give me 1 second here. Fear of heights is acrophobia. I was not aware of that.
We went on a retreat where we did like an all-nighter, and I grew up in LA, so this was probably Pasadena. So we did things like rent out a movie theater, rent out the Boys and Girls Club, or whatever was hosting it. Did these things for us kids. And one of the things that we could do, they had a bungee with a giant steeple, and all the kids were going to the top of the spot and getting harnessed up and jumping off. And I got all the way up there. I got harnessed in. I got my toes on the ledge. I'm looking down. And right then I'm just like, nope, I'm going to be that guy. I don't think that I did this. There is something very different from using the fear to focus yourself and on the when you're climbing a tree and stepping off a ledge. And I couldn't reconcile those two. Did not make sense in my brain. The harness was not enough to comfort me. And I took the harness off and I said, peace out.
Yeah, it's kind of went away. And I don't blame you. I mean, one time there was a ropes course right up in the top of Heavenly, right? And we ended up having to do like a work function up there, and nobody told me that that's what we were doing. So I showed up in my work clothes with my work clothes, and next thing you know, I'm in a harness like 30 to 40 feet off the ground on a balancing beam with like dress shoes because I was working in the service industry, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing up here? And although I've never been like that crazy concerned with heights, I will admit that moment was a little jarring. Just be up there with shaky knees, wobbling, and you know that you got a harness on you, but it doesn't make a damn difference because if you fall, you still fall. So
You still fall.
right, exactly. Well, my fear has always been the fear of the ocean, deep water. That's always been there, which I believe
My
is thalassophobia, if I'm not mistaken.
my one question from your last story was, was there that one person who showed up with like a bunch of ropes slung over his shoulder and hiking boots on, and
Well, that's what was so
knew
funny
it
is
was going to
I
happen?
pretty much almost did what you did when I was up there. I was almost like, get this thing off me and get me down.
Right.
But
No, 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 no.
but we were on a dual ropes course, which meant that I had a partner with me, and the partner that was with me was, I believe, 86, 87 years old, and she was just running like no one's business through those courses. So I was like, man, she's making me look like an asshole. So I can't chicken out. If she can do it, I can do it.
It's nice to team up with someone who's brave.
It's true. Yeah, that can definitely make a difference.
If you're struggling and you're paired together with someone who clearly isn't.
Yeah, yeah. I guess you can just kind of hopefully power through it. But it's true. It's like she was literally, lapping me on these courses. While I'm sitting there shaking like a leaf, she's practically jogging, up and down the line.
That's cute. I
Yeah,
like that.
it's pretty funny though.
So you would consider Subnautica a
Yeah,
horror game
it is, and it's a game I play actually, and that's kind
because
of
of the
enough
deep
because
water?
I play it just for the same reason that you try to suggest taking ropes courses to get over your fear of heights. And a part of that was just because when I was a little kid, I was like probably like I don't know 3 or 4. We were in Hawaii on a family vacation, and my dad wanted to take me boogie boarding, and so we got these boogie boards, we got the gear and everything set up, and it was a neat boogie board because it had a hole in it with a viewing window. So when you're on the boogie board, you could look through the
Oh,
viewing window and see everything below you.
that's kind of nice.
It was kind of cool, but I was a 3-year-old kid, and as we were getting out there, you were swimming over the coral reef, and suddenly it dawned on me, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of living things down there. There's crabs, there's eels, there's octopus and or octopi, I should say, and they're floating in and out of these weird chambers. And it didn't help that at that exact moment, unbeknownst to me, my dad had hooked his leg on a piece of coral
Oh
and
no.
his leg. So the water started filling with blood, and he starts screaming, and I just like froze. I was like, oh my gosh, this is danger.
When the person that you depend on when you're small gets hurt, it elicits a certain type of terror in you because they're the ones who are going to make everything okay and they're hurt.
Right,
So your brain goes, ah.
right. So I guess going on to the idea that it's good to have a brave person with you, it's also more terrifying when that brave person loses their shit.
Like, when the guy who literally like can do anything is struggling, yeah, that's hard.
So it looks like we have a question here from Thomas Stanek, who said, am I afraid of deep water or the creatures that lurk in the ocean? Like, is it treacherous water, drowning, or savage attack from a shark? It's funny because after that incident, I really did a deep dive into marine
Mm.
biology. I had a really big interest in that. And it really wasn't sharks that I was worried about. One thing that freaked me out, especially over here in California, is Humboldt squid. I mean, have you heard of Humboldt squid?
No.
So they're mean suckers. They actually, I believe, they have 6 tentacles, if I'm not mistaken, and the tentacles, the suction cup on the very tip of their tentacles actually has a built-in tooth. And what they will typically do is they will find their prey, collapse around it, grab it tight, and the teeth will hook into it, and then they will immediately start to dive. And strangely enough, what that will actually do is drown the fish or whatever creature that it's there, and then it has a feast. And so there was an incident, I can't remember, a couple years back, where there was a woman out there just scuba diving with her husband, and without any warning, all of a sudden she felt this tug, this massive tug, and she started getting pulled deep, deep, deep into the water. And I guess a Humboldt squid had gotten the back of her scuba gear, and unfortunately, that tooth actually was sharp enough that it severed her breathing line. So not only is she being pulled randomly down, but
Right.
now all of a sudden she's having trouble breathing. So luckily, she was able to beat the thing off her and resurface. But when they showed pictures of it, it was a pretty gnarly thing because it just ripped up that tank like no like cutting it through butter, basically.
Well, where my brain goes is, and as you were describing it, my thought process was, okay, if this is 3 inches long, if the entirety of the creature fits in the palm of my hand, I'm cool with that. You can do that to minnows. Like,
Right.
rock on, little dude. If it's as big as a truck, why are we going in the water? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
doing this today? Like, how much is this? Is this really worth it?
Yeah. I mean, so I guess to answer your question, Thomas, and thanks for chiming in, it's a bit of both. But really, what really unsettles me is when you're in a deep, deep area of water and it's so dark you can't see anything beyond it. Because it's just a part of that fear that builds in your mind that there could be anything out there, anything out there. And unfortunately, you're in an environment where you're not naturally inclined to, and there are other creatures that are naturally inclined to it that will swim a lot faster than you.
Right. We're not exactly, adept at getting away in a hurry in the water. It slows us down. Uh,
Oh, hey, looks like we might have a guest star coming in. Hey.
Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. Ta-da! Our first guest on the show. Quick in and out.
I kind of had to set up here because of the hard line. I needed the cable.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So you did mention when we talk about the subject that you were a Stephen King fan.
And my sister's kids are great, by the way.
Oh, hooray for the
They're awesome. We're trying to stay on schedule though.
Oh, you're good. You're good. You're fine.
Now, what were you going to bring up? What's up?
Oh, that you said that you mentioned that you were a Stephen King fan.
Yeah. Now, I haven't read his recent stuff. I read an awful lot of his stuff in the 90s and the 2010s.
Any particular favorites?
I do have a favorite Stephen King book, The Tommyknockers.
Oh, that's actually one I myself haven't read. Would you care to discuss it?
It's sci-fi.
But you don't like sci-fi, right?
Not to spoil it too much, but for a long time, my two favorite books were Michael Crichton's The Sphere.
That's a good one.
And Stephen King's The Tommyknockers.
And it's funny because The Sphere, it's deep sea ocean stuff again.
Right. And Tommyknockers is not. It's um, a town gets um, under the spell of. Well, I guess I'm just going to spoil it. You
That's
really
fine.
shouldn't read it though. But spoilers. They their brains get hijacked. They kind of go into zombie mode. They definitely um, are being possessed by this thing with an insatiable desire to um, rebuild the spaceship. And so, at the very beginning of the film, a lady's on her property and she runs across this metal thing in her yard. And then from then on, she starts getting more and more obsessed with. And there's this green glow that's dominant in the whole thing. Um, the townspeople start uh, building technology that obviously we can't do that. A typewriter that reads your mind and types from your brain waves. Batteries that extract way much more power, like just crazy technology. And there's a scene in there where with the green glow coming out of the shed, and you're thinking, what is this that's doing this to them? What is going on? Until you get towards the end, and you're like, oh well, of course they're fighting, and there's a character in there who has a metal plate in his head, and he's immune to the thing, and he is just vehemently opposed to everything that's going on, and he's trying to escape, and he can't get out, and he's I believe he's an alcoholic, and he's having this inner struggle with himself and this outer struggle with the world that's going insane, and it's just great.
It sounds like a read. Kind of reminds me on the other side, because there's always the Stephen King versus Dean Koontz. Did you ever read Phantoms from Dean Koontz?
If I did, it was a long time ago, more than 20 years ago. Clue me in. What was Phantoms about?
Again, not to do any spoilers. It's definitely not an extraterrestrial, but it kind of gears up that way, because basically they stumble across a town that everybody's vanished, completely disappeared. But the only thing that they do find are bits and pieces of people, but not like in a way that's like violent, as if they were torn. More so, just kind of like they were grabbed and a part of them was left behind, which is weird. Like there's a really famous scene in that where they go into a diner and they see a pair of hands that were cutting celery, right? The hands are there, but the person isn't. And if there's no blood, there's no sign of any struggle. It was almost like mid chopping, they were just whisked away, but their hands were left behind. Yeah. So it was a really interesting read, because it goes more into them trying to figure out what's going on. And of course, it hints at ideas of extraterrestrial life. And it's not, surprisingly, but it is something that is pretty monstrous overall. But it does kind of prey, I guess, on those fears of being, I don't know, alone, I guess, and especially in an unusual environment that's normally active and bright.
That sounds great. I should go read that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we're going to have to swap books then. You grab yourself a copy of the Phantoms, I'll get myself the Tommyknockers.
Yeah, Tommyknockers is really good. Did you read Sphere?
I've seen the movie, not have read the actual thing from Michael Crichton. So I'll have to go on my reading list as well.
The premise asks the question, if we really could manifest whatever we wanted directly from our brain around us in the environment, are we ready for that power? can we um, can we control our minds to the point where we really would be able to function if the world functioned in a way where I wanted a cup of coffee and the cup of coffee materialized exactly the way I wanted it and I can drink it. Um, and if we had that power, we would manifest monsters.
You think so? You think that would be one of our go-tos is manifesting monsters?
Well,
Like
we
you
can
like
we don't.
intentionally or unintentionally?
I think it would that there would only be a couple of people on the planet who would survive that if
Yeah.
you, instead of an environment where you were undersea, if it landed in the middle of a city and many people or everyone on the planet all of a sudden had this thing, the the world is burning.
Oh, are you referring to Sphere?
Yes,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I must have missed that. Yes, that would be terrifying. Yeah.
and it would be a very different movie if and shorter. If
And
everyone
just
got
for
the
our,
power all at once on the planet, all 9 billion of us or whatever we're up to now, had the sphere of power, then the world would burn, and it would be doubtful if. I mean, the characters in the book call it I think they call it a gift that they're not ready for.
yeah.
But
And just for our viewers out there, in case you're not familiar, this is Michael Crichton's The Sphere, and the premise of which is a spherical object is found in the ocean, and generally it just brings out, how would you say it? Bring out your inner thoughts, your inner dreams.
so the sphere came back on a ship that was launched in the future. It had a spaceship had a black hole event where it went bent time and arrived in the past and dropped into the ocean to be found later.
Right.
So they they find this spaceship. They don't know. They assume that it's an alien craft. They go onto the craft. I'm spoiling it, but they they find out that it's American made. It's a product of NASA from the future, and it has this object in the holding bay that's a sphere that's large and ominous. And they're a bunch of scientists, so they sit down and they try to science the shit out of this thing.
We're gonna science the shit out of it.
Yeah. And for the most part, it kind of works. Like they're coming to conclusions and they're checking off boxes and they're working their way down the clipboard of okay, we found out a thing, cross that off. Found off another thing, cross that off. Who had interaction with it? What are the symptoms? What's going on? When Harry interacts with the sphere, they give him bed rest and lots of water and kind of just keep him under observation. And they're distracted because they're communicating with an entity through the computer, not realizing that they're communicating with his subconscious.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's his subconscious that brings out something kind of scary later on. But that's the long where sort of viewers to explain why, if the sphere were, say, like in a city, Ryan's suggesting it would be turmoil, because then that would be several subconsciouses linked to it all at once. And likelihood if somebody had a really bad dream, nightmare, or whatever, that would manifest all over the place. And then, yeah, I imagine that would be a shit show real fast.
Well, and 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 my point is, okay, is it a gift? Is it, or is it a test? Because a test would be, okay, if if you give people this power and they make it through this and they don't burn the world down, then whoever's moving forward, um, you could create a fantastic society.
It would be really neat because the idea would be is that you'd have to be in control of your own thoughts, and especially the intrusive ones that pop into your head. And if you're able to control yourself and you can control the sphere, then yeah, you could probably create a perfect world, perfect utopia.
Um, the manifestation powers um, would be, I mean, and do you really need to invent a car when you can just materialize and dematerialize? And I'm not quite sure how the sphere works. Um, it seems to be in both instantaneous and a slow burn. Anyway, um, but that kind of goes with what we were saying in mastery of your mind. So using, um, experimenting with the fear and learning how to use it,
For good.
right, to
For
your
something
advantage.
beneficial. Yeah, absolutely. To your
Yeah,
advantage.
realizing where you're in over your head, and okay, so when this happens, the only way I'm going to be able to use that really is run,
Yeah, right.
just
Well,
run.
yeah, and that's kind of a great. I'm glad that you actually brought that book up, specifically because that does kind of play into what we were talking about with Lovecraft. That I would consider that a cosmic horror of sorts, especially because it's something that's way beyond our human understanding.
There's so much there, but we're going to move on. There's so much to talk about in this genre. It really is.
Yeah, I think there was always a quote that I always preferred from Lovecraft, which is "Man's greatest fear is fear of the unknown," and that's usually where as much as I like horror movies and stuff, a lot of my favorite horror is kind of abstract, creeping things just beyond our grasp, of understanding or human knowledge. Did you ever happen to read The Cipher?
No.
It's Kathy Koja. That might be one that you might like. I wouldn't necessarily call that one sci-fi, but the premise is essentially a guy lives in this awful flop house of an apartment complex with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's a little bit of a toxic person, and they have a really weird relationship. But they find down the hallway in a store closet this hole, this random hole in the floor. And they originally decide to take a flashlight to look down it, but the hole is so dark and so thick that light can't even traverse through it.
Right.
So they get to the point where they start dropping things down it and trying to listen for it to, hit something, and it never hits anything. And they start running ropes down there, and the ropes just seem to go on forever. And something unnatural kind of continually draws them to it, to the point where this character puts his hand into it, and he describes it in the story like he could almost feel like there was a presence nurturing his skin, and then he feels a tug, and he's almost pulled into the hole. But when he comes out, there's a black spot imprinted on his hand, and that just continues to grow and grow and grow.
No.
Yeah, so it's a really really spooky story. I highly would suggest checking it out. I think it really does play kind of on the psychological fears of just that need, that desire to look into the unknown.
Where my mind went was um, Silent Hill. There was a hole here.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
gone now.
yeah. Crawl into the hole in the wall. Like, do I have to?
Right. It's this put
Yeah,
in, and it just, and oh no. Oh,
yeah. Like, oh, geez. I mean, that being said, if you woke up and there was a giant hole in your wall, would you feel the urge to explore it?
we we have this yeah, so I think yes, I would. I would
Really?
have
Ooh, you're brave.
this. Well, it's not so much. Maybe it's more stupidity. It's just that you want to know, don't you? I
Yeah.
mean, what I have a talk with my mother about space, and she goes, "Well, that doesn't do anything for me in my day to day life. I'm never going to encounter space. Why think about it? Why worry about it?
But don't you want to know?
So
That would
it
be my
might as well not exist
yeah.
as something that I have to think about because it's so far removed from anything that I'm ever, I need to go get coffee today. I don't, why am I worried about
Why am I
space?
thinking about space?
And, and so, and NASA has talked about funding problems and people, more worried about let's feed everybody.
Right.
And I get that, but we have so many advances that came from the space program that help people in their day to day life that I have to lean more to the side of science and say, um, yeah, no, it has helped you in your day to day life in ways that you don't quite can't put together, but it is a good thing. There's just a couple of steps removed from until you uh, experience it in your day to day life.
Yeah.
Um, Holes and interdimensional things. What was that movie with uh, Sam Harris where he carves pentagrams into his body and loses his mind? It wasn't Pandorum. It was the other one. The Event Horizon.
Oh yes, that's
Am I
definitely
getting the
cosmic
actor's
horror.
name right?
Yep, Sam Neill. Yeah,
Sam Neill. Yes. Okay.
Sam Neill. I was like
So
Sam
that's
Harris.
why my brain wasn't firing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they open. Like Interstellar. They have a Event Horizon experience where they um, go into fifth dimensional space or whatnot, um, but they don't find themselves there. They find the demons there.
Yeah, it's like they opened up a portal to hell.
Right. Unfortunately, and in that scenario of chasing down what would happen when reaching fifth dimensional space is terrible and awful and not something that you ever want to do.
Yeah, it does bring me back to the Philadelphia experiment. Do you ever remember that?
Was Well, I remember hearing the stories I believe it was in the 90s of men stuck in the hulls of ship and time travel and uh, magnetic distortion of space and time, allowing extra dimensional travel and the uh, U.S. government's dabbling in that.
The idea of possible. What am I looking for?
fantastical stories of
Teleportation.
right. Well, and I guess they made some movies on it. Um, and I think I watched one of them, but it was a long time ago. Um, Opening up spaces and exploring them beyond our understanding might be like, uh, and I think we will go on some of these adventures. The human race, uh, and
Oh, not you and I specifically.
specifically, I think we're going to still keep to our mundane uh, existence and not have to deal with the madness of opening up doors that are just full of strangeness. But the writers have kind of been in two camps. One of them is um, scientific, something that we do like timeline, something that we do in the lab will open up some kind of possibility for time travel or reaching in dimensional space or extraterrestrial. So something out there will open a door that we'll go through. Even in, yeah, there are many examples. The Tommy Knockers was kind of like it didn't open a door, but it was that existential other of something coming from the outside.
Hmm.
Um, does the kitchen clean itself? It does when I'm in it. If I'm in it and I'm part of the kitchen, yes, it is cleaning itself. You don't have to worry about it. Kitchen gets cleaned,
Right.
but only from something from the outside.
Yeah.
Exerting force on it.
There's actually a movie that came out recently that you might enjoy. It's called
What do you get?
Hostile Dimensions.
Oh, when did that come out?
I think it came out within the last year or so.
Really? So
I
new,
definitely-
new.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. It's a fun one. I'm not going to spoil it, but it does
Were those-
kind of go into
Were those tentacles on the door?
Sorry.
Were those tentacles on the door?
Yeah,
Is that
those were some
Google?
kind of tentacles on the door.
So it kind of nudge in the direction of Cthulhu. So we have the doorways are passages to the other, and Cthulhu is the old gods or the old ancient minds that have been sleeping for a long time that you don't want to mess with.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you though, although Cthulhu is not in that movie, there are something similar that you'll see. But it's neat because it does explore the ideas of various different wormholes or portals to alternate dimensions, um, like a world that's completely full of like killer balloons.
Yeah, that
Why
sounds.
not?
Yeah, do that. House of Leaves.
I'm so glad that you brought it up because I was just about to do that myself.
Yeah, and I really just need to sit down and read it again because it's just there's so much there. That was a really fantastical trip, and I'm glad that you sent me out, gave me the trailhead. Here,
Yeah, that
it's
was a great read. And I don't know
really
if
appreciate
you're
that.
aware, they're actually going to be making a movie of it coming up very soon.
Good luck to them.
I know. I can't even imagine what that's going to look like. You know, like
I have this idea in my mind of what it should look like, and I will check that at the door when I do watch it because I will watch it.
yeah. And to all viewers out there, this is definitely an interesting read for Mark Danielewski. What makes it so interesting is that the narrative is all over the place. You've got different clips, different methods of how the story is told. And again, it's not something that we probably want to go into spoil, but it's supposed to be a report on a fictional documentary that's supposed to be a real documentary, which focuses on a family that buys a new home only to find that there are dark hallways that are appearing randomly in the house that lead them into kind of like a maze of nothingness almost.
So first of all, this isn't for the faint of heart. The book is like over 600 pages long.
I believe so. Yes.
It's a brick.
It's a
So
big.
first of all, it's a long read. It's complicated, and there are multiple threads of storyline going through. Um, one of the threads of storyline kind of reminds me of 5 millimeter.
Okay. Yeah.
Another thread kind of reminds me of explorers getting gear together to explore a cave.
Yep. That's another good way to put it. Yep.
Um, and and so kind of meshing those two together, where there's a mystery to be solved, but through the different threads, when you start pulling on them, it all comes together to this thing that's there, that people are having a compulsive desire to explore this thing.
Yep.
And it's kind of driving them nuts. And the writing style, like I said, the book is long, and then some of the pages, the writing is kind of put into patterns. To you flip to the next page and everything is inverted, so you have to turn the whole book
Yep.
around and read the book upside down. So there is kind of a little bit of activity book kind of feel to it here and there, where the words are kind of running off the side of the page and you're following them.
Yeah, you almost kind of feel like you are like the characters in the story. You yourself are doing the research, going into finding in all the stories of all these individual characters. It's a really interestingly well done book.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kudos. Now, kudos to him for writing it. Do we know if he did anything else?
Yes, he actually did a series called The Familiar, which I have the first book. It's kind of the same in how House of Leaves was presented, but they do it in a different medium where there's like, I think, like 8 different characters, but they all have different handwriting. They all have different styles. So some of when their story is being read, they'll have like animal print, or because that's something that character just happens to like. So the only way you can really keep track of who's really talking in the story is by getting to really learn all the characters' personality traits and like their individual merits there.
In the actual physical book, are there different fonts? Is that how I'm keeping track of who's talking?
Correct. Yeah, different fonts, different styles of writing. So it's kind of a really unique thing. One I've always wanted to pick up too is I think it's called, it's either the 100-Year or the 1,000-Year Sword, and that's actually a rare one to find. It was a play that he wrote, and the only way you can identify the different characters is that each character is represented by a color, which is kind of unique. So you'll get a whole block of writing, and then it'll transition from red to blue, and at that point you realize that you're talking with 2 different people and 2 different narratives.
Right. Okay. I never really got into the whole slasher thing. I did watch Hellraiser. I have watched Event Horizon. There is some blood in that. I've watched some films with a little bit of Freddy Krueger,
Right.
Blood Spray, Chainsaw Massacre. Um, this I kind of gravitate more towards the sci-fi horror or the psychological horror. Um, a couple years ago, I went back and I watched The Firm
Oh, that's a good one.
with Tom Cruise, I believe, is in that one.
Yeah.
Where it's not, it's not a ghost story. It's not a, it's very much suburban, uh, first world. Uh, Definitely not predator running through the jungle.
Right. It's
This
a different kind of survival. Different kind of
your family is
psychological.
under threat from a part of society that you didn't realize was there and functioning.
Right.
And okay, go. What do you do? Oh no.
Yeah.
And and the story goes to the screen really well.
Yeah.
Where they were able to
Roundabout story
show
there.
in a realistic way. Okay, yeah, you're in this suburban nightmare. Um, the Burbs.
I love The Burbs. That's an underrated cult classic. But
Oh,
again,
that's what he was.
fear of your neighbors, fear of the unknown. That's another aspect of that.
Us. It's not them.
And that's another great example too, because it's like they have their a seemingly normal life, but then they have these strange neighbors, and they become obsessed with it. They become obsessed with knowing what potential secret they may or may not be hiding.
The inability to not the inability to stop yourself from looking around the corner.
I guess then we can draw some idea that what might compel us to be interested in horror is just our own curiosities, our own need to look at something that's a little abnormal and out of the norm for us in life.
What gives me the willies with dark water
Mm.
is the inability to see through it.
Yeah.
The inky blackness of it. It kind of loops back around to the fear of the dark and the fear of the unknown and not being able to see. And your imagination starts populating that void with what could be in there. Is it a fear of sharks? I don't think so, insofar as just not being able to penetrate that darkness and know what lurks in it, and the fear that whatever is in there might get you.
Right. Yep. And that's what keeps you going, keeps you.
Because I had the hairs on the back of my neck stand up playing Subnautica 2, where I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So again, for viewers, Subnautica is a video game that basically throws you on an alien ocean planet, and you're left to deal with that. And there's some terrifying moments when you get into that dark water, and all of a sudden your sensor says there's a leviathan near you, and you're like, oh,
You're
God.
dealing with oxygen supply. You're dealing with having to go underwater into caves where you can't reach the surface and deal with, and then in later game, dealing with larger and larger, more dangerous creatures, dealing with, okay, so in order to get down there, I need a submarine, but I don't know how to pilot one.
Yeah. You better learn fast.
And it takes 4 people to run a ship of this size, and I'm one person, and I don't have any more people on this planet with me.
Right.
So I have to do 4 people's jobs at the same time.
Yeah,
And
basically.
overextend myself in running back and forth and trying to push all the buttons and try to, oh no, and there's a fire, and I'm too far away from, so I can't ditch out of the craft and reach oxygen. So I have to figure out a way of putting out the fire, or the whole thing is going to burn down me with it, or I'm going to drown. Panic that sets in, and you're like, this is too much. I'm doing too much. Kind of like playing Overcooked.
Right.
You're just like, too many
The fear
plates.
of taking too many things on at once.
And so there's a panic in there, and it's less of a horror and more of a biting off more than I could chew.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. That is another kind of, I guess, fear of responsibility.
A little bit, yeah. We're like, okay, I can do the thing, but then I would overextend myself, and that opens the door to failure.
Yeah.
And do I really have to confront that?
Right. But I guess, as we pointed out, sometimes confronting your fears is the best thing you can do to overcome them. And sometimes you need to do that in order to explore worlds beyond our own. So when the day comes and the door opens up to another dimension and you and I are standing there, I'll be like, after you, sir.
And I'm standing on my car with glow sticks.
Yeah, glow sticks.
I'm over here. I'm over here. There was a TV show that I watched that had a scenario where people were in a bunker but didn't know they were in a bunker since the 1950s. It was they believed that they were on a generational ship headed to another star, and the lie was an experiment. I'm going to spoil it. I can't even remember the name of the show, but the exercise was an experiment in breeding a human who would be able to have not telepathic powers, but teleportation abilities that would allow them to fold time. And I think it had something to do with, loosely, had something to do with our brains having some innate ability to almost like some kind of quantum ness going on there, where we could, the human mind being a supercomputer, could interact with that nth dimensional space or fifth dimensional, and that it was something that was posited that we would be able to do, kind of like a wrinkle in time. And so it's that interact. I know I'm going back off into sci-fi, but it's that interactive.
You don't like sci-fi, Ryan.
It's that interactiveness of the individual interfacing with the other. And the spooky action at a distance coming into play. So I'm kind of still on point, but not really. Sorry.
You're totally fine. That being said, though, we're getting close to the end of our show here. The only other fear that I wanted to bring up was this one, based on my favorite cartoonist, Gary Larson.
I just recently got some more Gary Larson books.
Yeah, anadiaphobia, the fear that somehow, somewhere, a duck is watching you.
A duck is watching you. My neighbors have ducks, and so I know. Sometimes I'm walking through the yard, and I know that one of them is watching me.
Yeah, they're on to you, buddy. Was there anything
they know what I'm up to?
Right. Was there anything you want to say before we sign off on this episode today?
The surveillance state of ducks.
And those are the final words of the episode, the surveillance state of ducks. Well, thank you once again, viewers. This was the second episode of Two Scrambled Brains.
Good.
I guess until the next topic, we'll see you next Saturday.
I have no idea what we're going to talk about. It's going to be fantastic.
It should be great.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, and we'll see you next week.